Improving the health of our state's rivers and streams, including the ones that flow through UGA's campus, is a task that everybody can help with. In collaboration with Watershed UGA, Dr. Peggy Brickman's honors biology course gives students the opportunity to see how science directly relates to civic life. It shows the students that there are many ways they can use what they learned in class to help keep our streams healthy and clean.
In this case, we contacted Clarke County, talked to them about, what are things that the average citizen might be able to do, and they said, oh, well, we do this outfall inspection so people can look at how water might be sort of gathering from roads and streams and entering into the watershed. And so they agreed to come and sort of show us how they go through their process.
So the reason that we do outfall inspections in Athens Clarke County is because it's one of two EPD or Environmental Protection Division approved ways for looking for illicit discharges, illegal connections, basically inputs into the stormwater system and consequently into our streams and rivers that we don't want getting in there. We are looking for basically anything that's flowing that it shouldn't be. In fact, if we find any flowing water, we have to test it. The reason that we look at any flowing water whatsoever is that these outfall inspections are supposed to be dry weather outfall inspections to be completed 72 hours at a minimum after the last rainfall. So if there's something flowing, it's probably not stormwater.
The first thing we look for is the odors and then turbidity, and then once we move through there, we want to check to see if there's any floatables, any flow line, any deposits, anything like that growing that shouldn't be there. A lot of times you'll see algae growing. If it's real thick algae, it's usually something not good coming through there, whether it's fertilizers or sewage. The parameters we check for, pH, dissolved oxygen, conductivity, temperature, chlorine, fecal, fluoride, and detergents.
We don't have any preconceived notions about what we might necessarily find, but some things that do come up are things like sewage. We will sometimes find evidence of either a septic tank has started leaking or there's a sewer line issue somewhere. We're also looking, though, for things like dumpster fluid getting into our system, for an illegal connection, someone connecting into a storm drain when they shouldn't, and even things as simple as people dumping paint when they shouldn't be dumping paint. What we do next is we utilize our GIS inventory, which has all of the stormwater system in the county, all on this giant, wonderful map, and we start going up the system. So this is the outfall, this is the end of our stormwater system. We go to the next step up. What's the first catch basin? What's the first storm drain? Is that flowing? If it isn't flowing, we know the problem is somewhere in between there. If it is, we have to start looking at what's connecting into that storm drain and following it down that way. So we really we chase it up the system as far as we can, looking for what that source is. It's important for us to determine the source of the illicit discharge so we can effectively stop it. We need to be able to provide this information and documentation to the Environmental Protection Division with our annual report as required by our permit. It's also important because this is something that's written into our ordinance. So we have a specific ordinance that focuses on illicit discharge detection and elimination. And that ordinance, we are the ones who enforce it, and it's really important that we make sure this ordinance is enforced and is upheld because that ensures clean water for Athens Clarke County. If we detect something that seems like sewage, we call public utilities immediately. They're very, very responsive and they want to be on it, whenever there's any chance that something might be happening with their sewer lines. I know that they have a lot of really cool technology that they use, including a camera truck, which lets them look down different pipes and look for issues in them. But they're very responsive to these kinds of sewer leaks or potential sewer leaks. And what always ends up happening on our end is once we notify them, they will follow up with us once they've completed their investigation to let us know what the issue is.
We have got a camera crew. That's all they do is it's got a robot camera on tracks or little tires, and it'll go through the sewer line. It's got its own monitor, and the operator sits and watches it, watches the monitor, and he'll find anything that's out of place, like cracks in the pipe. If it's got a belly in the pipe, a swag, what we call a belly, that's holding sewer. then sometimes we know that's where the break is. You know, if everything looks good except for one spot, then we'll pinpoint that, measure it out. It's got a counter on it to measure the foot, and we'll locate it in, we'll dig it up, and we'll do a point repair and fix it.
Sometimes it's just a matter of lack of understanding or lack of information about how the stormwater system works. So it's also a really useful educational opportunity to sort of talk to people about, well, this is what the impact is on the fish, on the streams, on the rivers. Here are some alternatives to, dumping paint down the storm drain, or here's some alternatives to dumping these chemicals out. This is what you should be doing instead. Outfall inspections are so efficient because if we weren't going through and looking at these outfalls specifically, we would have to walk over 400 miles of streams. And while I would love that because that would be great being able to go outside, it would be beautiful, but that is a lot of walking for a really, really, really limited staff. And these outfall inspections are just a much more efficient way to say, hey, is there anything that's leaving our system and getting into nature?
And then I had another student who was walking by the dorms, and she said, I could smell detergent. And I thought, that's not right. That shouldn't be going out into nature. There might be a leak in the sewer lines, and now I know I probably should contact somebody and tell them about that. Whereas I think before, they just figured it's all taken care of, and whatever I flush or wherever I park my car, it has no impact. But now they realize, no, actually, we all have to pay attention to these things.
It's exciting to see that UGA students are getting really involved with thinking about the streams on their campus, especially since there's such a push to view them as an asset. UGA does have a lot of great streams running through it. It's got Lake Herrick, it's got some ponds. So, having students recognize how big of a deal non-point source pollution is, but also how big of a deal these unexpected illicit inputs into the system can be in terms of disrupting ecosystems and harming wildlife and harming even recreation. I think it's great.
If you see a stream and you're in a sort of parking area, that's the easiest thing, is to think, I wonder where this place drains to, and just sort of look around, glance around, and if you see something and if it looks really nice and it's clear that no water's coming out of it, it hasn't rained in a few days and everything's fine. But if you look over and it hasn't rained in a while and there's water pouring out of this thing, you should think just in the same way you would at your own house. If the faucet was running full blast or the toilet was running, that wasn't good. We should probably contact somebody about that.
So I hope that now when the students go out and, they're walking by a stream and they notice a pipe flow in, they might give us a call and give us a heads up, hey, there seems to be some water here that I'm not sure is supposed to be here, because we would want to check that out.